Let's take a look at the asymmetry of stock prices and stock returns. So you might think that if your stock price fell by 50% and then the price rose by 50%, you would be back to where you started from. You would be even. But that's actually not true, because when stock prices change by the same dollar amount, the return you earn when the price goes down is not the same as the return you earn when it goes back up. So how are returns calculated? Well, returns are calculated as the price in the current period minus the price in the previous period divided by the price in the previous period. Or you can take the price in the current period, divide it by the price in the previous period, and subtract 1. So you're going to have a different number in the denominator depending on whether it went up or down. What was the number in the previous period? And that's going to affect the return calculation. So let's consider the following example. Suppose the price of a stock is 100, and suppose it falls by $25 to $75. And then it rises by $25 back to 100. Let's see what our returns are. Using that calculation, in the first case, you lose 25%. However, when it rises from 75 to 100, it's increasing 33.33%. So this is the case where if you lose 25%, you have to gain 33.33% in the price in order to get back to even. So let's take a look at some numbers here. So suppose we have that $100 stock price, and then the price falls to 90, that's a 10% drop, falls to 85, that's a 15% drop, and I did it all the way down to falling to 50, that's a 50% drop. But what do you need to get back to even? In the first case, and when it drops by 10%, it has to go up 11.11% to get back to 100. So 11.11% of 90 is going to be that $10 you lost. If it falls by 15%, it's got to go up 17.65% in order to get back to even, back to 100. If you happen to fall by 50%, the stock's going to have to double or go up 100% to get back to your initial investment. And so I've got a little graph here where I've shown this, and you can see that as the stock price loses, the amount that your return has to go up, or the price that your stock has to go up to get back to even, goes up and up and up. So you can see that if the stock price falls by, for example, 90%, you have to have a 900% return to get back to even. One of the problems with this is depending on how you calculate your returns, you may get a somewhat silly answer. And there are two ways that we generally calculate average returns: the geometric approach and the arithmetic approach. So the arithmetic approach is what you're used to thinking of when you calculate an average. You add up the observations and then you divide by the number of observations. So you take, the first return, and then you add it to the second return, and you add it to the third return, etc. And then you divide by however many observations you have. So let's just say you have 3 observations, you divide by 3. The geometric return is a little different. You're going to take 1 plus the return, and the return is going to be in decimal form, and you're going to multiply them together. So you're going to have 1 plus the return in the first period times 1 plus the return in the second period times 1 plus the return in the third period, and then instead of dividing by the number of observations, you're going to raise this value you have to the 1 over tth power. So if you only have 2 observations, you take the square root of it. If you have 3 observations, 3 returns, you take the cube root, and then you're going to subtract 1 from it. So let's return to our previous example. The arithmetic average is minus 25% plus 33.33% divided by 2. That comes out to be 4.16%. Now that seems rather silly because you went from having 100 and you're back at 100. It seems ridiculous that you actually had a 4% return. The geometric approach gives you the correct answer. 1 plus negative 0.25, okay, 25% times 1 plus 0.3333, and then you take the square root of it, and you'll get 0%, which makes sense. This is the return you actually earned, right? You started at 100, it went to 50, or I'm sorry, it went to 75, and then it went back up to 100. Your return is 0. So in this case, the geometric return makes a lot more sense. So when you think about returns, you have to think about the asymmetry of how they're calculated. So I hope you enjoyed this, and thanks for watching.